Welcome to this slot called Leaders Are Readers. You know that if you're a leader, you need to be reading. And that's exactly what the slot is about, because today I've got an author that has written a book, and the name is Yes, Yes, You. Ooh, what is that about? Well, it's all about the 10 stepping stones to get on with your life. So I'm so thrilled to have the author, Dr. Barbara Johnson. Bobs, how's it going, and who are you? Introduce yourself.
Dr. Anthony, hello. It's been a while, but it's so good to be with you. Thank you for this opportunity. So, yes, this is the book, and I am so excited to tell you they have promised me courier delivery of the book tomorrow. Yes, yes, you, 10 stepping stones to get on with your life. And this is what it looks like.
Fantastic.
And I have a shipment coming in, and people have got orders in already, and I'm very, very excited to be in this position with a book that I am absolutely passionate about, because like you say, Anthony, it's about leadership, and leaders read.
100%. Well, Barbara, obviously you and I have been friends for many years, but the people listening in would know, who's Barbara Johnson? So just give us, what is your background? What are you passionate about? Who's Barbara?
Who's Barbara? Well, Barbara turned 70 this year, but I'm only getting started, right?
Love it. Love it.
I'm a mother of two. I have three grandchildren. I have a grandson of 22 years old. I mean, go figure. I am passionate about life, Anthony. I love life. I happen to rent a property here now in Johannesburg again with a preschool on the property.
Okay.
So all these noisy children playing, all these adults that I work with across trauma counseling, life coaching. Now I'm extending again my authorship. This is actually the second edition of the book.
Okay.
I've been asked to rewrite it. I've been asked to grow it. And it is a book that really says a lot about me, because that's the kind of personality I have. So yes, get on with it now. Now it's time, because life is short and life needs to be lived. And we need to leave this life having left this place better for having had us.
Well, I love your title, but somehow in my spirit comes up as like getting up from the ashes, get going. Is that the right feeling? Is that the right feeling of understanding it?
Yes, it is. And it drills down even further than that, because yes, that is the energy, but people do not know how to access that.
Correct.
They do not know how to access their inner being so that they can have that big phoenix rising.
Fantastic.
And I've been going through this very topic again with my grandson, the 22-year-old one, Aiden. And I'm saying to him, it's about the phoenix. And it is about the technique, the 10 steps that we can take for that inner reflection.
Well, that's the part I'm really looking forward to, because if there's one thing about me, I don't know, my other nickname is Dr. How To, and that is helping people with how to overcome how to. So this falls right in that ambit in terms of you thinking like me, because that's what we want to do for people, help them literally have victory. But what is lacking most of the time is, what are the practical how to steps to take to achieve that new level that you've risen up to? So, Barbara, let's get back to the purpose of the book. When you were inspired, or how did it come about that you decided, so it's a second edition. So take us back. Why did you write the first edition? And then again, what is the purpose of the rewriting it into a second edition?
So, Anthony, this book was written 10 years ago, and it was based on 12 years of trauma counseling and life coaching that I was giving to my clients. I wrote it in KwaZulu-Natal, and the combination of all the tools that I found myself repeating, I felt I needed to put it into a concise little book that could travel somebody's life. So from circumstance to circumstance, because it crosses all circumstances, all gender, all ages, all cultures, in fact. It's a little book that is based on, not directly, but certainly greatly influenced by the work of Dr. Viktor Frankl.
Okay.
I happen to be a logotherapist. I work his work. I love his work. I am also a attunement practitioner, which means that I read energy off bodies, people, not dead bodies, live bodies. And I help people with that subconscious, unconscious energy level that I can then ask permission to discuss. And the combination of those two methodologies, Anthony, has taken me to now 22 years of trauma counseling, life coaching. And the techniques that I have written in that first book have remained, because they continue to be the foundation of my work, actually,
Okay.
which I'm prepared to share with other therapists, psychologists, etc. So to answer your second question about the reason for the second edition, there was a story, and the story appears in the second edition, so I don't want to give too much away, where I was in Colorado, Denver, freezing cold conditions. I had a 6 a.m. shuttle pickup, snowing, uncomfortable for me, coming from South Africa, very uncomfortable for me. But I went down to the shuttle shelter half an hour before he was due. Now, believe it or not, 3 minutes into me waiting, he arrives.
Wow.
And this is a situation where it's him and it's me. And I have like a 40-minute drive with this man, and it's only him and it's only me. I mean, here he is on a scheduled drive, and he picks up one client. Anyway, whatever you want to interpret that as, I just thought it was quite remarkable. And he tells me the story about how after his shift this day, he will commit suicide.
Wow.
So
divine intervention, Barbara. It's divine intervention. It's just how life
that's what
works.
I would say.
The right thing at the right place with the right people. And you know what? We are purposed to make a difference. And you, that day, that time, were there for him. So, of course,
Exactly.
then you would, as a counselor, your mind would have gone to, how do we get there? Yes, yes, you back into him. Am I right?
Exactly. At the time, there was no book. And this is why I wrote this book. And particularly the second time around, because there was no book. And I wished that when he came to me after he dropped me off at my station, and he came hurtling at me over the suitcases of the people in front of me, and he gives me this big hug, I wished then that I had a book to give him, to pass on to him, so that he could move forward, not only with a new mentality and a new heart for life, but also how to tools to get what it is that he was really purposed for in this life. So that is why this book has been written not once, but twice.
Fantastic. Well, obviously, those leaders reading, listening into this today are now going, wow, this is different. We've read many books. However, this book is going to literally unlock 10 key steps that's going to help you overcome whatever it is that you've been battling with. You know, Barbara, so obviously your purpose was to make a difference, writing it to help people to rise up again and literally find themselves, purpose themselves, and say, it's not just only about me, but it's about those around me as well. I can just see where this is going. Right. So in terms of the 10 stepping stones, let's just flip that first stone into the water and say, what is the first stepping stone about?
The first stepping stone is about journaling.
Okay.
And it's not only about journaling, it is about a technique that I believe showcases our genius.
Okay. Now, if you say journaling, we're talking about experiences. We're talking about what do you want to achieve. So journaling, it goes two ways. It goes reflecting on the past, and reflecting to the future, but journaling is also what's in the moment. So if you can just take me through, what is your principle of that journaling?
Whatever is sitting in here needs to come onto the paper. One, so you can see it. Two, that you can see the genius of it. Three, that you can take action and create an action plan from it.
Correct. And I must tell you, Barbara, I'm one of those guys that they said a lot of people have got dreams. But I remember at the age of 23, I had written goals of how my life needs to pan out. And I came to one of these large conferences and they said, in this hall, there won't be more than 1% of people who've got written goals. And I happen to be one of the 7 out of, I think, 1,220 people. That were only 7 people who literally had written goals. Because once you've written it down, it gives you a point of reference. And yes, I do journal because it's the journaling of those moments of where you just see the wow factor. So when you are low, you can go and dig deep, go back into that journal, go, well, on this day, somebody was there for me. If you take this shuttle driver, on that day, at that time, Dr. Barbara Johnson was there for him at the right time. And if he had a journal, whenever he is really battling, if he goes back, he'll read about that day and realize his life was purposed and repurposed. In fact, it was literally taking him from a living death into starting to live a new life. That's really what's happening. So that's fantastic to hear.
Exactly right.
So obviously in your book, you will teach them the principles of journaling, and you will also teach them the practical how to, and obviously the pitfalls of when they don't, and the successes and the wins if they do. And obviously, no doubt, that journal, one question from me, is it a private journal that is supposed to remain just for that individual? Or is it a journal that at some stage has to have a soundboard intervention, like a person like you, that's a trauma counselor, says, tell me, what did that mean to you? And just bring the journal along and let's go through so we can understand the wins and the losses. What would the purpose be?
So the purpose of journaling for me is, one, it is a best buddy. As far as I'm concerned, my journal is my best buddy. It is a reflection of me, of where I am, where I've been, where I want to go, what's happening in this moment, what is encouraging me, what is holding me back. The journal is a book of awareness. It's a book of reflection. It's a book of hope. It can be anything that is going on in here. And so I offer one-on-one sessions with clients.
Okay.
And part of their homework is journaling.
Good.
And their journaling, whilst I do not read their journal, and I suggest that their journal is confidential and they should put it in a safe space so that other people don't read it, they are welcome, certainly in their feedback, to come back to me about what they found out in the journaling. So it is the explosion of life that comes to them, and they can't wait to share that with me. They can't wait to share their growth that has happened because of the journaling, because they gave themselves a space for things to land.
Now, something that comes to my spirit here is that when you say that your journey becomes your best buddy, I hope that those who are listening in here today will realize there's no sense in lying to your best buddy. So when you're journaling, don't lie to yourself. Give it the way that it is, because it's that moment of truth and an acknowledgement of where, if there was a shortage or a lack, and when there was a success and a win, that actually defines who you are. So if you're treating your journal as your best buddy, don't lie to your best buddy. Be real. Be real. Right?
100%. Yep.
Okay. Man, that is beautiful. So obviously, the readers can look forward to the nuances about journey and how to take that as a stepping stone and literally as a point of victory. And the first thing would be, when's the best time to plant a tree? Now, you and I know it was 20 years ago. When is the second best chance to plant a tree? That very day, when they find out that journey can become their best buddy and will be the first stepping stone so that they can discover, yes, you. Okay, fantastic, Barbara. So that was stepping stone 1. So help us with a little bit of a taster on stepping stone 2.
All right. So stepping stone 2 is creative writing.
Okay.
Finding within yourself that space of poetry, storytelling. In fact, my book is a creative finding of me, because until I wrote the book,
Okay.
I did not know what were those 10 tools that I continuously gave to my clients. So my book was a very, very creative process for me. I found out so much about myself. I learned continuously about me, my energy, my passion, my desire to leave something into my legacy as a book of my discovery of life, of my exploration and joy to share. So it was very personal, and it became something that it was a love gift, Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
And the creative poetry just then took another step down into, so who am I? And I found myself becoming a poet. I had not been a poet.
Okay.
I've never written a poetry book, although at one stage I had books and books and books of poetry. But I do have some poems in this book that are mine.
Okay.
And so we learn about ourselves, and we explore, and we come out of this limiting thinking. We expand, we glow like stars in the sky, because that's who we are, actually.
I love it. It actually taps into that creative part of yourself. Now, Bobs, I must tell you a little story about myself. Um, I actually wrote a poem to somebody when I was in standard 3 at school. And lo and behold, 40 years later, we're standing at a party and we meet people. I meet this person that was at school with me, and her husband is standing next to her, and she says, "This is the guy whose poem I still have next to my bed today." Oh my gosh, what a moment. She had kept and held onto that poem. And you must not understand my Arthur Murray in terms of, dude, that was 40 years ago. I mean, please. But anyway, so I helped her understand it was great to cherish something that somebody said to you, because it actually spoke to her being and uplifted her. However, I said to her, "But here's your hubby. I, is that fair to him?" And she goes, "Well, at the time I didn't know him." I said, "But now you're married. You're happily married." And I said, "You know what will be the strongest stepping stone for you? Is to say, time for this poem to go." And I said to him, "I'll tell you what, I challenge you both to have a glass of wine together and chuck it in the fire and say, we learn from our experience in the past, but it doesn't define who we are now." So I just share how that little poetry poem came up, and I had to chuckle about it because I was in trouble 40 years later for a poem I wrote. Then crazy. But
Beautiful story.
it ties up with that creative part in terms of, hey, if you have it, express it, because it actually builds on it. And I'll be honest with you, when you were speaking about what creative writing does, I was seeing myself standing with a paintbrush and creating a canvas. And when you have an open canvas in front of you, you can paint anything. You're also a fan of Viktor Frankl, like I am. And I remember that story about a man standing in front of a blank canvas and there's one black dot. And he asked people, "What do you see?" And everybody will start elaborating about the little black dot and what have you, and the negativity of life and what have you, until one person says, "Beyond that little dot, there is such a big scope of creative canvas of what you can do. That dot will disappear like the mist before the sun." And I realized that is a mindset. And your creative writing surely must be aimed at not focusing on the little black dot, but focusing on this panorama vision of what your life could look like.
Absolutely correct. Exactly. And it's an exploration. You don't know until you know. You have no idea of anything until you start doing it. And in doing it, you learn and you recreate yourself all the time. You're co-creating through this process that you're now attaching your being to?
Well, your influence on my life right now, what was that? I could see myself standing in front of a canvas with a paintbrush and creating because you spoke life into me. You spoke life into this very entity right now. And I think that's a takeaway for people on Stepping Stone too. Creative writing will unleash the potential on the part of you that maybe has been kept under a bushel, that maybe has been silent, that maybe has been dormant. But you know what? If you just allow yourself to get from the one stone, which was the journaling, onto the second stepping stone to say, the world is your oyster. Do creative writing, go the next level. It makes such a difference. Well, I'm very inspired, as you can see. You tapped into my creative thinking and my creative past, by the way. But that's what it's about. It's about stories, because stories is literally that tells people about who we are. Okay, fantastic. Stepping stone 3. What is that?
Oh, this is such an interesting one, and I grapple with it every single day. Do you know that little voice that you have sitting on the one shoulder? And then you have this other little voice that sits on the other shoulder. And the one goes, nah, 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 nah. And the other one says, yes, 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 yes. And these two voices have a competition inside your head.
Oh my gosh, this is such a real thing for people in terms of that they often get drawn down. I mean, when you're standing on top of a table, what is easier, to pull somebody up onto the table or for somebody to pull you off the table? And this is what it does with this battle between the two voices, is we tend to succumb to the negative one. And you know what? It takes training, and it takes a resetting of your mind to purpose and say, allow the negative voice, but don't let that negative voice drown the positive voice. Because, if I take this back to the retail industry, when we looked at customer service, anybody that got good customer service would tell 2 people. Anybody that got bad customer service would tell 11 people. So there you have the statistics. I think it was 22%. Only 22% of the time will we actually tell somebody when we had great service. But if there was bad service, it just multiplies, not twice, but 11 times. So I think that actually shows us the power of the difference between the negative voice and the positive voice, and how we need to embrace and realize the affirmation of the positive voice so that we can drown the negative voice. I'm sure that must be one of your overcoming principles as a counselor, for sure.
Well, for me, I think I've even stretched it a little bit more to discernment. Because if we're not discerning what we're listening to, if we're not conscious and present with what we're listening to, just sometimes that little negative voice is saving us, is keeping us safe. And I've had to come to terms with that, because it's not always about the negative being bad for you. I'll give you a little story.
Okay.
I was doing the Otter Trail in the Cape, and as it turned out, I had what I called a near-death experience.
Okay.
And the walking partner came back to me whilst I was in this space, this zone out space, angry as hell, because I had held him up. And I had to find it within myself to get out of that, being zoned into this magnificent, beautiful, beautiful place and space of light, into the reality of now, with this man who is so very angry with me, and I had no physical energy anymore. And I had to find it in me to crawl up using the roots of the trees in the muddy, wet earth. I had to find it within me to get up the hill. And it was only through anger at his anger, that I managed that.
Okay.
So that negative voice of anger actually for me was a saving grace. And if I had not had that, I don't know what would have happened, but at least I was now able to come out of the zone, get back onto the earth and climb that frickin' hill as fast as I possibly could, muster some energy. So again, discernment, presence, value, which is the more valuable here for now?
Well, that is a beautiful story. It just proves that we can sometimes direct that which is meant to be negative to become positive. That's taking lemon and making lemonade. Why not?
Exactly.
Well, okay. We are starting to run out of time, so I'm going to ask, like, we can squeeze in and maybe just ask, what is the fourth out of the 10 stepping stones? And maybe we will end for there today, because they will have to come back to listen to the rest of the next one. So let's, the last one. What is stepping stone number 4? We're listening.
So stepping stone number 4 is all about our presence, our relationship with our bodies, how to love our bodies, how to be safe and content and peaceful in the body that I've been gifted with. It is about exercise. It certainly is about food and water, no doubt. But first, it's about that relationship with body. I don't know, Anthony, for you as a man, but for women, the social media, the news, the gossip groups, the gym, man, it's all about women and looking great, looking right.
It's really that what's the word? Unfair comparison. Because remember those billboards, they have been what's the word? They altered. They don't really look up. That's right. It's like it's false painting over it. You know what I mean? And women unfortunately have to compete with that idyllic look that is created and on billboards that doesn't really exist. Because I mean, you sometimes meet this woman that has got a beautiful build, but yet she's going to say, look at my saddlebags. She's not happy with what she has. Why? Because of her mind has been indoctrinated that you need to look like this to be perfecto. So obviously that presence in terms of your own body and your own being is very, very important, is to be aware of it. But, you know, if I now take it like we're getting a bit older, and I see that both Michelle and I mean, you know, 60 plus, and we adding a little bit of body fat that I don't want. But yet, somebody said, you know what, that is the body's building in protection for you, because you're not a kid anymore. You don't run as hard as you used to use. You're not as competitive. You're still competitive. I mean, I'm fortunate. You know, I run 10 kilometers twice a week for me, for where I am in my life. I'm very grateful.
Fantastic.
But it doesn't mean I can run the times that I ran 30 years ago. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that my body is the same weight, but what it means is it sort of becomes self-protective, because this body of ours has basically been created to heal itself. I mean, when you have a scar, there it is. But as you know, there's a difference between a scab and a scar. I mean, you and I can look at both of those, and people say, well, what would you prefer? I prefer the scar, because the scar says I have healed from the scab. And I've learned from the lesson that I had. But my scar is my reminder of having overcome the problem I had that formed the scab. So, you know, with everything in life, is looking at your body in a different way. How do you see that?
One of the gifts that I gave myself this year, turning 70, I gave myself 4 gifts, and one of them was a course. I had never done an eating program course before, never. All my life, I have spent my life knowing that my body is not the normal body out there that can eat what normal people out there eat. So I have been vegan and vegetarian and a meat eater and a fish eater and just about a breatharian and a fruitarian. I've done it all, Anthony. I've done it all. But this year I went on to a course and I learned some basic fundamentals. And I learned that psychologically I could lose weight before my body would lose weight. And psychologically, I could take control of what went into my mouth because I knew why I was putting it into my mouth. And as a result of that, I lost 8 kilos. And I tell you what, I was really chuffed.
So you were happy. So it was a goal and you wanted to look after your body, but it worked. So your methodology worked for you.
100%. And now with winter having been, and me realizing that in Johannesburg's winter, it is jolly, jolly, jolly cold, that I need to pick up my calories, although calories is a bad word in that program, but I knew I needed to eat certain foods to give me some energy.
Correct.
On the 15th of September, I go back to that original program because now I am in charge of my weight going up and my weight going down. I know what I need to do for me to regulate and take control of a balanced, healthy body.
Wonderful. And what I read through that, remember we today about the practical how-to steps. I can hear for you to know whether you're going up or down. That means you get on the scale whenever you've decided you need to monitor to see that you are within the ambit that is acceptable to what you want to achieve. Well, Barbara, today has been absolutely fascinating. I'll be honest with you. Do you want to have a last point on that point there? No problem.
I wanted to just say, by the way, that's another myth that came out of this program I was on. You see, this is all about mindset again. And he was saying, forget the scale. The scale is just one of many, many, many techniques of understanding your body. But I have been on the scale because I know my body well enough, and I know my psyche well enough, that if there is an up, it's okay. Because in now my psyche says, well, that's because of A, B, and C.
Yep.
I can monitor that. I can measure that. If I want to bring my weight down, well, then it's A, B, and C that I no longer will do.
Okay.
So it gives me control. I love that.
Well, I can also hear it's mean taking action. Not just sitting there
Yes.
on a pole, but taking action as a remedy. Well, what I'm going to do, we would like to have you back because this has been an intense 30 minutes that is adding immense value. And we are busy with the book, Yes, Yes, You. And we're looking at the 10 stepping stones to get on with life, written by our guest speaker today, Dr. Barbara Johnson. So, Barbs, I'm going to invite you back that when we get back the second time, we will take up from stepping stone 5 because this is practical advice that's going to take us through life. And by the way, if you're a leader, you're a reader. And that's why you want to make sure that you actually empower yourself with new knowledge. Barbara, the last word from you today for our listeners.
Don't stop learning. Lifelong learning. For me, it's like a breath of fresh air.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.